The sky over Riviera Azul was painted in a brilliant shade of orange as the sun gradually dipped below the horizon. Gentle waves lapped against the smooth shoreline, carrying the soothing melody of the ocean. The air was infused with the salty scent of the sea, mingling with the tropical breeze, evoking a sense of tranquility that anyone would long for upon stepping foot in this paradise retreat. Amidst this perfect scenery, Miles Sterling walked along the shoreline, but his mind was far from at ease like the other vacationers enjoying their stay. At 35, Miles was a formidable name in the business world. As the CEO of Sterling Innovations, one of the leading technology conglomerates in the world, he stood at the pinnacle of success, possessing everything a man could dream of: wealth, fame, power. Yet when night fell and billion-dollar deals no longer occupied his thoughts, an emptiness settled within him like an inescapable void. That was why he despised idle moments. Work was the only thing that made him feel like he wasn't completely lost. But tonight, everything was about to change. Miles hadn't planned to come to the beach. Initially, he had intended to stay in his hotel room, finishing a few important calls before the conference the next day. But the sound of the waves and the peaceful atmosphere outside had drawn him away from the cold, sterile walls. He strolled slowly, his expensive loafers sinking slightly into the fine sand, his hands unconsciously slipping into his pockets, until he saw her. In that moment, the entire world seemed to stand still. Not far from him, a woman sat on the sand, her soft brown hair billowing in the sea breeze. She wore a simple white maxi dress, yet even in that simplicity, she was breathtakingly beautiful. Under the golden hues of the sunset, she was as serene as a painting, yet her presence struck him with a force that made his chest tighten. Camilla Carter, the only woman he had ever loved, and the one he had lost. Miles froze, but before he could steady himself, his gaze fell upon the two children playing in front of Camilla. A boy and a girl. Both had chestnut brown hair and smooth, delicate skin. The boy's face bore an uncanny resemblance to how he had looked as a child. Miles felt the blood in his veins turn to ice. He stood still on the beach, his heart pounding violently against his ribs. His breath became ragged as his mind scrambled to process what was unfolding before him. Impossible. He stared at the children. There was no way they could be this old if Camilla had given birth to them after their divorce. He sifted through his memories, mentally calculating the time. 8 years. No, it couldn't be. In that moment, his entire world crumbled. He had 2 children, and he had never known they existed. Welcome to today's story. Let us know which city you're watching from. Wishing you good health, happiness, and peace. We hope to bring you a little joy and warmth through our stories. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to become a part of the Soul Stories family. Once upon a time, Miles Sterling and Camilla Carter were the perfect couple. They met when they were both young and full of dreams. Camilla was a promising artist with a passion for sculpting and painting, while Miles was an ambitious entrepreneur building his career from scratch. Their love was pure, untainted by material concerns. When they got married, Miles had nothing but a small startup. The early days of their marriage were the happiest moments of Camilla's life. She believed, with all her heart, that no matter how rich or poor they became, no matter how difficult or easy life was, Miles would always be the man who put his family above all else. But everything changed. Sterling Innovations skyrocketed from a struggling tech startup to a billion-dollar empire. With success came an overwhelming workload. The romantic dates disappeared. The shared dinners became a luxury. Miles was constantly traveling for business, drowning in late-night meetings. Camilla tried to be understanding. She tried to be patient. She loved him and convinced herself that it was just a phase. She was wrong. That night, Camilla had prepared a special dinner. She remembered it vividly. It was their 4th wedding anniversary. She had spent the entire afternoon cooking, chosen her most beautiful dress, and set the table perfectly. But Miles never came home. He didn't call. He didn't text. At first, she thought he was just caught up at work. But when the clock struck 11, an uneasiness settled in her chest. She called him. No answer. Then she made a decision. She was going to find him. She drove to the Sterling Innovations office, but the building was deserted. A security guard recognized her and hesitated before saying softly, "Mr. Sterling isn't here, but I saw him leaving with Ms. Rachel." Rachel. Camilla knew her, a high-ranking executive who always looked at Miles with admiration, and something more. But Miles had told her that there was nothing between them, just business. Yet on their anniversary, he was with that woman. Camilla didn't need anyone to explain further. Her instincts told her something far worse. She drove to the hotel where Sterling Innovations often held events, and there, she saw something she could never erase from her memory. Through the glass doors of the hotel lobby, she saw Miles and Rachel stepping out of the elevator. Their intimacy was undeniable. Rachel was still smiling, her red lips slightly swollen, as if she had just been kissed. Miles looked a little tired, but his eyes held no guilt. He didn't even notice Camilla standing just a few steps away. What did it feel like? Like her heart was being crushed, the pain spreading through every inch of her body. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't cry. There was only a hollow emptiness settling in her chest. Camilla turned and walked away. That was the last time she ever saw Miles as her husband. Camilla didn't stay to hear any explanations. That very night, she packed her bags and walked out of the home they had once shared. No messages, no goodbyes. All she knew was that she couldn't stay with a man who had betrayed her. In the days that followed, Miles tried desperately to reach her. He called dozens of times, sent hundreds of messages. He searched for her at their friends' houses, reached out to her family, but no one knew where she had gone. Camilla had severed all ties. She was determined to disappear from his life. She never regretted that decision. But just weeks after leaving, she discovered a truth even crueler than Miles's betrayal. She was pregnant. Camilla was devastated. A part of her considered telling Miles, but then she remembered the image seared into her memory. That night at the hotel, the way he had chosen another woman while they were still married. How could she trust that he would be a good father? She made the decision to raise her children alone, without any help from Miles Sterling. And so for the past 8 years, Camilla Carter had been a single mother, raising 2 children on her own, never letting them know about the man who had once betrayed their family. Now standing before Miles on the beach, Camilla felt the familiar sting of an old wound. She was no longer the naive woman she had once been, no longer the wife who had foolishly believed in eternal love. She was a strong, independent mother who had fought to give Tom and Lisa a good life, without the support of Miles Sterling. Yet here he was. Miles looked as though he had been punched in the chest. His eyes were wide with disbelief, as if he couldn't process what he was seeing. His lips parted, but for a moment, no words came out. He swallowed hard, glancing at the 2 children before turning back to Camilla. "They're mine?" A flicker of pain crossed Camilla's face, but she quickly masked it with a cold, composed expression. "It's too late, Miles," she replied, her voice devoid of emotion. He shook his head, stepping forward slightly, as if he wanted to reach for her, but didn't dare. "You never told me. If I had known—" Camilla let out a bitter laugh, one filled with years of unspoken resentment. "If you had known, what would you have done?" she challenged. "Would you have left her and come back to me? Would you have accepted our children but still kept your affair going? Miles, you were never the kind of man who could be a husband and a father at the same time." He flinched. She was right. Camilla turned away, her gaze guarded. "You don't have to play the role of a remorseful father, Miles. They don't need you." Her words sliced through him like a blade. "They don't need you." The sentence echoed in his mind like a curse. But as Miles looked at the 2 children, his children, he knew he couldn't let them slip away. No matter how much Camilla hated him, no matter how much she tried to push him away, he wasn't going to leave. This time he would fight for the family he had lost. At this moment, Miles had never felt more powerless. He could command a multi-billion-dollar corporation, sign contracts worth hundreds of millions without hesitation. Yet now, standing before Camilla and the 2 children, he was just a man drowning in regret. "Camilla, please," his voice was hoarse. "I never knew about them. If I had, I swear I would never have let them grow up without a father." Camilla crossed her arms, her gaze cold as the night sea. "If you truly cared about family, Miles, you wouldn't have betrayed me. Her words cut through him like a blade. He knew he had made a mistake that couldn't be undone. But was there still a chance to make things right? He swallowed the pain and stepped forward, but Camilla immediately took a step back. "I just want to talk to them, Camilla." His voice softened, pleading. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but the children, they have the right to know who their father is." Camilla let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "You think you can walk into their lives after 8 years and expect everything to be fine?" Miles clenched his fists, forcing himself to stay calm. "I know I can't make up for the years I missed, but I want to do everything I can to be a part of their lives." Camilla studied him for a long time, her gaze filled with doubt and pain. She still remembered that night, the moment when her trust and love were shattered without mercy. "Miles, you betrayed me once. How can I trust that you won't abandon your children?" Miles stiffened at her words. He couldn't blame her for thinking that way. When they were married, he had put his work above his family. He had left her alone in long, lonely nights. He had deceived her. Now how could he ask her to believe he would be a good father? "I'm not going anywhere," Miles said firmly. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I will never abandon Tom and Lisa. If you don't believe me, let me prove it." Camilla pressed her lips together, her heart in turmoil. She had lived 8 years without him. She had protected her children from any pain connected to their past. But now Miles was here, and she feared he would bring back heartbreak, not just for her, but for Tom and Lisa as well. "I can't let you walk into their lives, only to leave again like nothing ever happened." Miles met her gaze, his expression unwavering. "I won't leave. Whether you want me to or not, I am their father." Camilla clenched her fists. She couldn't let her emotions take over. Just then, a small voice broke the tense silence. "Mommy, who is that?" Camilla turned around, her heart clenching, as she saw Tom and Lisa standing a short distance away, their eyes wide with curiosity. Miles held his breath as he looked at them. Tom had dark brown hair, sharp eyes, and a face that was an exact replica of his younger self. Lisa had round cheeks and Camilla's bright blue eyes, filled with innocent curiosity. They were a part of him, yet they felt like strangers. Camilla hesitated. She didn't want to lie to her children, but she also couldn't let them know the truth so easily. "He's an old friend," she said slowly. Miles felt his chest tighten. An old friend. He should have been their father. He should have been there for their first steps, to tell them bedtime stories, to teach Tom how to play sports and tie Lisa's hair into ponytails. But he wasn't, because he had lost his family. Tom tilted his head, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "If he's a friend, why have we never met him before?" Lisa tugged at her mother's hand, looking up at Camilla. "He looks a lot like Tom." Miles closed his eyes briefly, struggling to hold back his emotions. He couldn't lose them. Slowly, Miles knelt in front of them, making sure not to overwhelm them. "My name is Miles," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I was once very important to your mother." Tom frowned while Lisa continued to study him intently. "So you're Mommy's friend?" Tom asked. Miles forced a smile, but there was a deep sorrow behind it. "Not exactly." Camilla gripped Lisa's hand tightly, her breathing unsteady. She wasn't ready for this truth to come out. But Miles was. He couldn't lie to his own children. He couldn't let this moment slip away. "The truth is," Miles took a deep breath, his gaze full of love as he looked at them. "I'm your father." Silence. Camilla clenched her fists, her heart pounding. She wasn't ready for Tom and Lisa to know this. Tom and Lisa stared at him, then at each other before turning back to Miles. "Dad?" Tom repeated, as if the word was foreign to him. Lisa clung to her mother's hand, her voice trembling. "Mommy, is that true?" Camilla hesitated, but in the end she couldn't lie. She nodded slightly. Lisa blinked, still trying to understand what it all meant. But Tom, he studied Miles, his expression unreadable, his young mind processing the truth. "Then, where were you all this time?" Tom finally asked. The question felt like a knife to Miles's heart. Where had he been? He had been living a life of luxury while his children grew up without a father. He had convinced himself that the past was behind him, when in reality, he had never even tried to find Camilla. He had missed everything. I didn't know, Miles admitted, his voice breaking. If I had known, I would have been here for you both a long time ago. Tom stared at him for a long moment, then turned to his mother. Why didn't you tell him? Camilla felt her throat tighten. She didn't want her children to suffer. She didn't want them to be caught in a web of heartbreak and betrayal. But now, looking into her son's eyes, she realized that the truth was something they deserved to know. I was only trying to protect you, she whispered. Tom looked back at Miles, his sharp eyes filled with mixed emotions. So what happens now? Miles took a deep breath, his gaze steady. Now, I will do everything I can to make it up to you. Despite Camilla's cold distance and the children's hesitation to accept him, Miles refused to give up. The next morning, he found himself at the resort's playground, where Tom and Lisa were playing under Camilla's watchful eyes. She sat on a nearby bench with a book in hand, but her gaze never strayed far from her children. Miles took a deep breath and stepped toward them. Good morning, kids, he greeted, keeping his tone as light as possible. Tom turned his head, his expression still wary. Lisa, on the other hand, blinked at him, still trying to process the idea of having a father in her life. Dad, would you like to go boating with us? Lisa suddenly asked in a small voice. Camilla's head snapped up, her brows furrowing, but before she could say anything, Tom crossed his arms and nodded. All right, he said, his tone challenging. Let's see if you're any better at it than me. Miles chuckled, though his heart pounded in his chest from the sheer emotion of the moment. Fair competition, then? They set out on the water together, with Miles carefully guiding Lisa on how to balance, while Tom, quick and observant, was already maneuvering his small boat across the waves. The boy remained quiet, but Miles noticed the flicker of excitement in his son's eyes. Later in the afternoon, Miles took them to a kids' surfing class. Lisa eagerly jumped at the chance, while Tom hesitated, standing with his arms crossed, scanning the class intently before making a move. Miles picked up on it. You like to watch and analyze before taking action, don't you? He asked gently. Tom turned to him, a little surprised. How did you know? Miles chuckled. Because I was exactly like that when I was your age. Slowly, the gap between them seemed to shrink. That evening, while Lisa sat on the porch, drawing in her sketchbook, Miles approached her. What are you drawing? He asked. Lisa glanced up, pouting. I'm drawing our family, but I don't know how to draw you yet. Miles's heart clenched. He sat beside her and picked up a colored pencil. Maybe you can draw me on a boat with you, like today? Lisa considered it for a moment, then nodded. Okay, but you have to sit still while I draw you. Miles laughed. Understood, my little princess. From a distance, Camilla watched, a storm of emotions swirling inside her. Miles was trying. He was genuinely spending time with the children, laughing with them, teaching them new things. But how long would this last? He was Miles Sterling, a billionaire, the CEO of a global corporation. He could easily walk away from this, return to his luxurious life, and leave the children behind, just like he had left her. She couldn't let that happen. That night, as Miles stood on the balcony, gazing at the ocean, Camilla approached him. How long do you plan to stay? She asked, her voice cool. Miles turned to her, his gaze steady. As long as I can. Camilla frowned. You can't stay here forever, Miles. You have a company, a life of your own. Miles was quiet for a moment before answering softly. My life hasn't been whole since you left. Her heart wavered at his words, but she quickly reminded herself to stay rational. You think a few days can make up for 8 years? She challenged. Miles met her gaze without hesitation. Number? But I have to start somewhere, and I'm not stopping now. Camilla bit her lip. She didn't know if she could trust him again. The following days, Miles continued spending time with the children, and the more time he spent with them, the more he saw fragments of himself reflected in them. Tom's passion for technology, just like Miles. One afternoon, Miles found Tom sitting with his tablet, engrossed in reading about robotic programming. Do you like technology? He asked. Tom nodded enthusiastically. Of course! I want to build smart robots like Iron Man. Miles chuckled. Have you tried programming yet? Tom shook his head. I don't have anyone to teach me. Miles's chest tightened. If he had been present in Tom's life, the boy would have already had the chance to learn from him, but he had missed that opportunity. How about I teach you? Miles offered. Tom hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. All right, but you have to be better than me. Miles smirked. I think I can manage that. And so, father and son sat together, writing their first lines of code. Lisa's love for art, just like Camilla. Lisa loved to paint. She could spend hours sketching the world around her. One morning, Miles found her in the garden, working on a large canvas. What are you painting? He asked as he sat beside her. Lisa tilted her head. I'm painting a family, but I don't know how to draw you. Miles smiled, though a deep sadness settled in his heart. Would you like me to pose for you? He suggested. Lisa considered it for a moment before nodding. But you have to stay still. No moving. Miles feigned seriousness. Understood, my little artist? As Lisa dipped her brush into the paint, Miles watched her with a tender gaze. The way she concentrated reminded him so much of Camilla, and at that moment he realized something profound. Lisa was a reflection of Camilla, sensitive, artistic, and full of emotion. Tom was a reflection of himself, curious, intelligent, and determined. Looking at them, Miles felt an overwhelming sense of regret for all the years he had missed. He had missed Tom's first steps, Lisa's first words. He had missed family dinners, bedtime stories, and all the small but meaningful moments that made up their lives. But now he wouldn't miss another second. Miles Sterling had made his decision. He would do whatever it took to be a part of his children's lives. The scandal breaks. A secret family? News of Miles Sterling's stay at Riviera Azul spread quickly. But what caught public attention wasn't his participation in the business conference. It was a leaked photograph of him playing with two children on the beach. The image immediately went viral, splashed across the front pages of major newspapers, accompanied by sensational headlines. Billionaire Miles Sterling's secret family? Sterling Innovations heirs finally revealed? Miles Sterling hid his children for years. Miles was in his hotel room when he received the news. He unlocked his phone to find his inbox flooded with messages, journalists, business partners, and even employees from his company all demanding answers. One particular photo stood out. Lisa clinging tightly to his neck, while Tom looked up at him with a mix of curiosity and contemplation. The image warmed his heart, but at the same time he knew this wasn't going to be easy. Right now, his biggest concern wasn't his company, it was Camilla's reaction, Miles's confrontation with the board. The following morning, Miles received an urgent call from the board of directors. Miles, this is becoming a serious problem. Richard Caldwell, one of the major shareholders of Sterling Innovations, said in a grave tone. Do you have any idea how much our stock has dropped? Investors are worried about the company's image. I understand, Miles replied calmly, but this is my personal matter. It has nothing to do with the company. Nothing to do with the company? Another voice cut in sharply. Miles, you are the face of Sterling Innovations. If the media continues to dig into your private life, it will damage our brand. The board has discussed this, and if you don't resolve it properly, we may have to force you to step down. Miles clenched his phone tightly. He had spent his entire life building Sterling Innovations, yet now they were willing to push him out over a personal matter. But even as the weight of their ultimatum pressed on him, his greatest concern wasn't the company, it was his children. If the media continued their pursuit, Tom and Lisa would be the ones most affected. I'll handle this, Miles said firmly, but I will not abandon my family again. Rachel's return. That evening, Miles received a call from an unknown number. Miles, it's been a long time. He recognized the voice instantly. Rachel Lancaster, the woman who had shattered his marriage and the one mistake he wished he could erase. I heard you're in Riviera Azul. Her voice was silky but laced with manipulation. Can we meet? Miles's jaw tightened. There's nothing to talk about, Rachel. She laughed softly. Still as cold as ever. But I think you'll want to hear this. The rumors about your secret family could get worse if the press finds out that the mother of your children is Camilla. Miles's grip on the phone tightened. What do you want? Let's meet. Just a conversation, like old friends. Miles knew Rachel too well. She never did anything without an ulterior motive, but he couldn't risk her getting anywhere near Camilla or the kids. Camilla's misunderstanding. Miles arrived at the cafe Rachel had chosen, unaware that fate had other plans. Camilla hadn't meant to follow him. She had simply been passing by when her eyes landed on a sight that made her stomach twist. Miles sitting across from Rachel, the woman who had destroyed their marriage. Rage surged through her. She had begun to believe that Miles genuinely wanted to change. She had seen his effort with Tom and Lisa, seen him try to rebuild a connection with them. But now here he was, sitting with her. Camilla's hands balled into fists as she strode straight into the cafe. I was wrong to think you actually regretted anything. Her voice, ice cold, cut through the air like a blade. Both Miles and Rachel turned to her, startled. Miles immediately stood. Camilla, this isn't what you think. Rachel smirked, leaning back in her chair. Oh, what a surprise. It's been a while, hasn't it, Camilla? Camilla shot her a withering glare before turning back to Miles. I really thought you wanted to change, but clearly you're still the same, always running back to her. Miles's brows furrowed. Camilla, listen to me. This isn't... Don't make excuses. Her voice was sharp, cutting off whatever defense he had. I won't let you hurt me again, and I won't let you deceive our children either. Then without another word, she turned and walked out. Miles felt as though the ground beneath him had crumbled. Rachel took a sip of her coffee, her smirk widening. Well, it looks like you just lost your second chance. Miles's fist clenched. He had already lost Camilla once, but this time he refused to let her slip away again. No matter what it took, he would prove to her that he was truly remorseful, that he was capable of being a real father. Because if he lost her again, he knew he would never forgive himself. Miles's proof through actions. Miles knew that words alone would never be enough to make Camilla believe him. She had once loved him, once placed all her trust in him, but he had betrayed her. No amount of apologies could mend the wounds of the past, so he decided to prove himself through actions. The very next morning, Miles organized a press conference at the Riviera Azul Hotel. Reporters flooded into the conference hall, camera flashes illuminating the room as he stepped up to the podium. Taking a deep breath, Miles surveyed the crowd. He wasn't just speaking to the media, he was speaking to Camilla, whether she was there to hear him or not. I know there have been a lot of rumors circulating about me and 2 children over the past few days. Today, I want to set the record straight. The room fell into silence. 10 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I betrayed the woman I loved most. I lost her, and I didn't even know that I had also lost 2 children in the process. The crowd murmured. Pens scribbled across notepads and recording devices clicked on. I won't deny my past. I made a mistake, and I won't make excuses for it. But there is one thing I want everyone to know. I will never let my family suffer because of my failures again. Miles looked straight into the camera. Starting today, I will devote more time to my family. I will not let my work steal the precious moments I have with my children. And for those who still doubt me, I will prove myself through my actions. Backlash from the board of directors. Miles's public declaration spread quickly, but not everyone was pleased. That afternoon, the board of directors of Sterling Innovations called an emergency meeting. Walking into the boardroom, Miles was met with the stern faces of the company's most powerful stakeholders. Miles, are you playing games with this company's future? Richard Caldwell, one of the company's most influential shareholders, glared at him. You went on national television and declared that you would be stepping back from your responsibilities? Did you think the board would just let that slide? I'm not playing games, Richard, Miles replied calmly. I've spent over a decade building this company, but that doesn't mean I should have to sacrifice my family for it. This company is your life, another board member interjected. If you can't dedicate yourself fully to it, you don't deserve to be CEO. Miles scanned the room, his gaze unwavering. Slowly he nodded. You're right. I can't continue as CEO if I can't balance work and family. The room fell silent. So, I'm resigning. Gasps filled the air. What did you just say? Richard's eyes widened. Miles stood up, placing his hands firmly on the table. I'm resigning, he repeated, his voice resolute. Effective immediately. This company is important, but my family is more important. The board members exchanged stunned glances. No one had expected Miles Sterling, the man who had built Sterling Innovations from the ground up, to walk away so easily. But his mind was made up. He was no longer the man he had been 10 years ago. The man who had put his work above everything and lost the most important people in his life because of it. Camilla's realization. News of Miles's resignation spread like wildfire. When Camilla read about it, she could hardly believe her eyes. Miles Sterling, the man who had once been so consumed by ambition that he let it destroy their marriage, had given up his empire for the sake of his children? She had always believed that his attempts to make amends were temporary, just a way to ease his guilt. But this was different. That evening, when Miles arrived at the resort to see Tom and Lisa, Camilla watched him closely. He no longer carried the arrogance of a powerful CEO, nor did he wear the mask of a man who thought he could control everything. Standing before her was a man who had finally learned what truly mattered in life. You really gave up the company? Camilla asked, her voice quieter than usual. Miles nodded. I won't let work take away another second of my time with Tom and Lisa. Camilla searched his face, looking for any sign of deception. But all she saw was sincerity. She wasn't ready to forgive him yet. But for the first time in years, she started to believe that maybe, just maybe, Miles Sterling had truly changed. As time passed, little by little, Miles became a part of Tom and Lisa's lives. At first, the children kept their distance, but he didn't give up. He patiently spent time with them, helping Tom assemble model airplanes, assisting Lisa in painting on the beach, and reading them bedtime stories every night. One morning, as Miles was helping Tom fix a broken toy car, the boy hesitated for a moment before whispering, Dad, do you know how to put this wheel back on? Miles froze. His heart seemed to stop for a second. He looked up at his son, then glanced at Camilla, who stood nearby, equally stunned. Lisa tugged at his sleeve, her big eyes shining. Daddy, can you help me color this picture? Miles felt a lump in his throat. He nodded, his voice hoarse with emotion. I'll help you both, anytime you need me. For the first time, he truly felt like a father. For the first time, Tom and Lisa truly accepted him. Camilla watched everything from a distance, seeing how Miles cared for the children without forcing anything. He didn't try to win their affection with extravagant gifts, as she had once feared. Instead, he used patience, sincerity, and unconditional love to prove that he had changed. One afternoon, when Lisa slipped and fell on the beach, Miles rushed to catch her before Camilla could react. It's okay, sweetheart. Daddy's here, he reassured her gently, brushing the sand off her tiny legs. Watching that scene, Camilla felt something soften inside her. After many trials, she could no longer deny one thing. Miles was truly trying. That evening, after the children had fallen asleep, Miles stepped onto the balcony where Camilla stood, gazing at the endless ocean. She didn't turn around, only continued watching the waves. Thank you, he murmured. Camilla frowned slightly. For what? For giving me the chance to be a father? She was silent for a long moment before she replied softly, It's for the children. They need their father. Miles didn't argue. He knew that, for Camilla, forgiveness wasn't easy, but at least she had opened a small door for him to step through. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the beach in a warm golden glow, Miles and Camilla walked side by side along the shore. The waves gently lapped at the sand, washing away their footprints as they strolled. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Only the sound of the ocean and the whisper of the breeze surrounded them. Then suddenly, Miles stopped. He turned to Camilla, his deep blue eyes reflecting the soft light of the setting sun. I lost you once, Camilla. His voice was low, steady, sincere. This time, I won't let that happen again. Camilla shivered slightly, though not from the cold. She lowered her gaze, her fingers tightening slightly around the fabric of her dress. Miles! She started to say something but fell silent. Slowly, he reached out and took her hand. Camilla didn't pull away. In that moment, without words, they both understood. This was a new beginning. No rushed promises, no illusions of a perfect love, just a slow, steady path toward forgiveness, a trust being rebuilt piece by piece. This story is Miles's journey of redemption after making the greatest mistake of his life. He not only reclaimed his right to be a father, but also learned to become a better man, one who put his family above all else. Camilla, despite the scars she still carried, learned to give him the chance to prove that he had truly changed. And most importantly, Tom and Lisa finally had what they had always deserved, a complete family. Because sometimes forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means learning to move forward together. Thank you for following this story. Let us know what you thought, and don't forget to subscribe for more emotional and powerful stories. Leave a comment, share this story with others. Stay tuned for the next one. Until next time, love always wins.